Good morning, you guys. Welcome back to another video. I am going to be doing the mid-year book tag. I have seen so many different people film this, and it's literally July as I'm filming this, and I can't believe that we're almost halfway through the year. Like, where did the time go? I think I've read 32 books this year, and I don't think I've talked about all of them on this channel, so I'm really excited to dive into everything that I have read so far this year, like what are my favorites and stuff like that. I have about 13 questions I'm going to answer, and I will leave them all in the description box below if you guys want to go through and answer them yourselves. I'm also really excited to talk to you guys about the coffee that I'm drinking. Thank you so much to Javy Coffee for collaborating with me on this portion of the video. What I really love about this brand is that they are so environmentally conscious when it comes to sourcing their products. Everything that they sell on their website is ethically sourced and sustainably made, which I really appreciate. They also partner with a ton of farms worldwide that prioritize regenerative farming, which basically means that when they are going through the agricultural process, these farms really prioritize soil health and restoring the soil. If you guys have watched that Down to Earth show on Netflix with Zac Efron, they do an entire episode in the second season that talks about like soil health and regenerative farming. I would definitely recommend checking that out. It's just so important nowadays with the environment and all the effects that we are seeing from climate change. But I have been trying out their protein coffee and I love it because I have been trying to incorporate more protein in my diet to help with my health goals. And for every one scoop that you use, there is, and I'm not kidding when I say this, 10 grams of protein per scoop. Basically, it's instant coffee. So what I do when I make it is I get 8 ounces of water, put it in a cup, dump 1 scoop in, and then I use my frother to mix it, add ice and creamer, and it's done. Like, it literally takes 2 minutes. It's so easy. The powder doesn't clump at all, and it doesn't taste powdery. I know in some of the protein powders that I've tried, you can just like really taste it. This doesn't taste like that at all. It's like 100% Arabic coffee, sugar-free, keto-friendly. Like, there's literally no fillers or anything in it, which I really like, and it tastes really, really good. It also gives me energy all day, and it doesn't make me jittery, which I really like because I hate feeling jittery, especially with my anxiety. It's no good. If you guys want to try out the protein coffee or any of the other products they have on their website, you can click the link in the description box below and use my discount code Kimberly95190, and that will get you 20% off anything on the website. So thank you so much to Javy Coffee for collaborating with me on this portion of the video, and let's get talking about all the books that I've read. So I will say a lot of the books I'm going to talk about in this video I don't have physical copies of because I have been reading so much on my Kindle. So all of the books I have were either borrowed from the library or they're ebooks that I have on here. The physical copies that I do have, I have sitting right here. I feel like it's not that many. So question number 1 is, what is the best book that you have read so far this year? I feel like for each question I have a couple of books that I'm going to talk about. So starting with my absolute favorite, let me actually get these down so I can look through them. If you guys haven't guessed it already, because I think I talk about this in almost every single video that I filmed since reading it, Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. This is a true 5-star read for me. I actually read this in my Reading Popular TikTok books video, and I read it on my Kindle because it's on Kindle Unlimited, but I loved it so much that I went ahead and I bought the physical copy for it. I could not stop thinking about this book, which really surprised me because if you watch the video, at first I was like, I don't really know how I feel about this and the writing style. There is a lot of smut in here. If you're trying to avoid that, I wouldn't recommend reading this. The story is just so good. The meaning behind the title is so special. These characters, like, you're gonna want to be a part of the friend group that's in here. This entire book, it follows this friend group. They've all grown up together. They are all so close. There's 3 guys and 2 girls, and those guys would literally do anything for them. Like, they're so protective. It's so sweet. It is a sports romance, so you get to see the football in here. It really reminded me of One Tree Hill, if you guys have watched that show. It's so good. It will feel like pure torture at some points just because of everything that these characters are going through. If you have transitioned between high school and college, that's what you get to see this friend group go through, and it's just gonna feel so nostalgic, and this book will always have a special place in my heart. Then the next book is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I feel like this is really basic, but everyone raves about it for a reason. This is another true 5-star read for me. I did read it in my Reading for 24 Hours video if you guys want to go ahead and watch that and see my real-time reactions. But everything about this book I loved. Like, Emily Henry's writing in here is just unmatched. The way she describes living living and breathing and just every single emotion. It really made me think of Taylor Swift. Like, this is literally Taylor Swift in a book, and I don't say that lightly. This follows a friend group, particularly there's one couple in here. It follows them through their romance. I went into it blind. I would recommend doing that because it just makes it so much more fun. I think if you're in your mid to late 20s, this will especially hit you really hard. There's so much nostalgia in here, and just some of the lines will really hit you to your core. What it comes down to is it's just a story about growing up and experiencing change with your friends and navigating what that looks like. So real and relatable, and I just loved every single thing about this book. Then moving into something a little bit different, the last book for this question is my Live devotional by Sadie Robertson Huff. I read this from like January to May-ish. It's 100 devotions for letting go of fear and following God. Honestly, anything that Sadie writes about, I'm like, I need to buy it. I need to read it because she is like an idol to me. I just think she has such a gift for speaking. Every single day when I would read this and journal about it, like it just felt so relatable to what I was going through. And I would definitely like go back through and reread different devotions and even like do the whole thing again. Honestly, just was 5 stars. Moving on to question number 2. My coffee is like almost gone, you guys. What is the best sequel that you've read so far? I actually don't have any physical copies of books for this because the first book that I wanted to mention I rented through the library. This was the It Starts With Us, which is part of the It Ends With Us series. I have heard mixed reviews on this book. I did rate it 4.5 stars. I think it's one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books that I've ever read, and I've read quite a few of them. It's a very happy story, so much healthy communication, which I feel like is why people don't like it, because they like reading about drama, but really it's just like everything you would want to see for this particular couple like in a book. You get to see them just like living their normal lives and navigating like what happens at the end of the first book, and I thought it was so well done. I absolutely loved it. And then the second book that I wanted to mention is the sequel to the Inheritance Games. I read that entire series this year and absolutely 5 stars. I loved every single one. They're so fast paced because the chapters are short, and it just like held my attention the entire time. I really love that there's like a subplot of romance in there because there's a love triangle between the main character and 2 of the brothers, which you get to see continue into the second one. And then you also get like the mystery element with all of the riddles and the puzzles and everything. Piggybacking off that last question, the next one is, what is my most anticipated release for the second half of 2023? Definitely the 4th book in the Inheritance Game series. It's called The Brothers Hawthorne, I think. And I think it's a prequel that's supposed to focus like entirely on the brothers. I'm so excited for that one. And then I'm also so excited for the 3rd book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series to come out in October. That's called A Curse for True Love. I already pre-ordered it. I'm so excited because I got like the really pretty pink special edition from Barnes & Noble, and I think it's gonna look so good with the other 2 books that I have. This entire series, it's a fantasy, it's very magical. If you love reading about like fairy tales, if you love watching the Vampire Diaries, this really gave me that vibe. And the second book ended on a cliffhanger. Like, it was so good, and I'm so excited to see like how she's gonna continue to develop the story in the 3rd installment. The 4th question is, what is a new release you haven't read yet but you want to? And I feel like I'm so basic for saying this, but definitely The Fourth Wing. I have seen this book everywhere. I'm sure you guys have seen it everywhere too. It's like a modern day fantasy book that has dragons and dragon riders in it, and I have really been on a How to Train Your Dragon movie kick because just seeing that book everywhere has made me want to watch the movies, which makes me so excited to hopefully read the book soon. But I feel like I want the physical copy of it, but it's just sold out absolutely everywhere because everybody has been buying it, and I'm just like really curious to know what the hype about that book is. And then another book that I want to read just came out in April, I think. It's called Love Songs Suck by Becky Monson, and she is one of my favorite authors. I love reading all of her books. I think I've rated almost all of them 5 stars, but I randomly found her on a whim last fall because I came across her book Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice, which is so good, by the way. Definitely consider adding it to your fall TBR. She has so many good ones. She writes a lot of chick lit contemporary romances that are all clean, which I really appreciate, and she will just like make you laugh. It's about this girl. She grew up in Nashville. Both of her parents are musicians, and she just like completely wants to be separated separated from the music scene. So she's like, I do not want to date anybody who's a part of that. But then I guess something happens and she ends up meeting this musician and he writes a song about her and they get into like a fake dating situation, and it just sounded really good. So I'm excited to hopefully get to that soon. What was the biggest disappointment in a book that you've read so far this year? And I will say, are we not surprised when I say Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune was very disappointing. I rated this one 3 stars. I just really didn't like that there's emotional cheating in here, and almost, not even almost, like out of the 2 books that she's published, there's some fashion of cheating in here, and I don't understand why. Like, that's not a trope for me. And then one of the books that I also read recently in my newest video, reading Small Town Romances for a Week, was Always Mine, which is the first book in the Honey Mountain series. I rated that one 2.5 stars. It was not what I was expecting. I like loved the small town and just like all the close-knit relationships and everything, but there was just way too many characters for me, and it was very, very smutty. There is smut in almost every single chapter. There's a lot of drama. There's too many tropes in that book for me, and I just would not recommend reading that book, which is really disappointing because I checked out a lot of like the different books that Laura Pavlov, the author, has released, and they all sounded really good, and they're all on Kindle Unlimited. So I don't know like if you keep reading through the series if it gets better, because almost all of them have like above a 4-star rating. So I'm like, did I miss something? So definitely let me know if you guys have read that one. And the third book that was a disappointment for me, I haven't talked about at all on this channel. I listened to the audiobook for Finley Donovan Is Killing It, and I rated that one 3 stars. It was a really fun book, but the characters are just so annoying to me, and I was disappointed because I did really want to enjoy it. What is the biggest surprise that you've read so far this year? And I have a few books I want to mention. The first one being Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is a sci-fi book and a book that I read for my book club. I didn't know like how I was gonna feel about it because it seemed outside of my comfort zone. It's about this guy. He's like the sole survivor on a mission to save Earth in space. There's a lot of like physics that Andy like talks about in the book, which for me as like a sciencey person who majored in science in college, it was really cool to read about, and I just can like appreciate the effort that went into writing this book. But the story was absolutely incredible. Like, it's a work of art, and I actually ended up buying it for my brother for his birthday. And then another book that was a surprise for me was Indigo Ridge. I rated that 4.25 stars. I read it in one sitting. After I finished it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Honestly, I'm still thinking about it because I read it very recently. I thought it had the perfect balance between like smut, the romance subplot, and also like the mystery that's in it as well. And then the last book that was a big surprise, this was a very random book that I picked up because I think I was just like going through a slump at the time. I didn't really know what I wanted to read, and I had heard really good things about this book. So I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I rated it 4.75 stars. The plot of this book is just so unique. It revolves around this idea that when you are in between life and death, there is a library that holds all of these books that contain like all of the different lives that you could have lived based on certain choices that you make in your life. You get to follow the main character Nora as she lives all of these different lives and gets to like see what would have happened to her if she made certain choices. It's just a book that really, really made me think. What is a book that was outside of your comfort zone? I think I mentioned this a little bit already, but definitely Project Hail Mary, just because I've never really read a sci-fi and I didn't really know how I was gonna feel about it. But like I said, I loved it, and I ended up rating it 5 stars. And then another book that was outside of my comfort zone that I did not enjoy was The Partner Track by Helen Wan. I read this for my book club. It was actually the first book that I read this year. I just really didn't connect with the characters at all. The main character in here, she is a lawyer. You get to see her as she like goes through this really, really big case that she's dealing with, and I ended up rating it 3 stars. Who is your new favorite author? And I can't really answer this just because I haven't really read a lot of series this year, but if I had to pick one, I would probably pick Matt Haig, just because the writing in The Midnight Library was phenomenal, and it really made me want to pick up some of his other books that I actually have on my TBR already. And I'm also reading a book right now by this author named Jenny Hale. I actually like found her from the Stuff Your Kindle Day that was on June 30th. I downloaded like a bunch of books, you guys. But I added like 3 or 4 of her books to my TBR, and she writes a lot of really cutesy summer romances, rom-coms, and they're all really clean, which I appreciate. So the one I'm reading right now is actually called The Magic of Sea Glass, and it seems really cute so far. So when I finish it, I'll definitely like give you guys my opinion and whatever, but I think I added like 3 or 4 of her books to my TBR, so I have high hopes for her. I just had to change my camera battery, so I apologize if it's kind of like moved. But the next question is, what is a book that made you cry? Just like seeing all the books I have in front of me, definitely these two, which I've already talked about so much, so I'm not going to get into them. But the other one I wanted to mention, I don't think I've talked about yet on my channel. It's called Mine Would Be You by J. Camilla. I rated this one 4.5 stars. This was a TikTok book that I saw. It's on Kindle Unlimited. So good. It takes place in New York City. You get to follow this girl named Valentina, I think. I'm just gonna check real quick. Yeah, Valentina. So basically she is like in her early to mid 20s. She has just like gone through it. She gets invited to her ex high school sweetheart's wedding and ends up going to it because they grew up together. Her entire friend group, they're all very close. They all grew up together and they end up going to his wedding. But the night before the wedding, she actually has this one night stand with this guy she meets at a bar. And then when she goes to the wedding, she ends up seeing him. He is like pure sunshine. He is so sweet to her. There's so much healthy communication in this book. You get to really see her experience redemption, finding love after breaking it off with your first love, and finding herself, experiencing healing, experiencing loss. Like everything about this book was so realistic and relatable, and it made me sob, especially if you listen to the playlist while you read. Like definitely recommend. Then opposite of that question, what is a book that made you happy? And I definitely wanted to talk about Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Chestnut Spring series, and I feel like it's always going to have a special place in my heart because it is what introduced me to the cowboy romance world. This was such a sweet book. It did have a lot of smut in it for me, which I didn't really care for, but I think the writing was really well done. You're gonna fall in love with the family and all the brothers. I think each brother gets a romance in this series, which is super fun. It's like an enemies to lovers forced proximity. I really thought the relationships in here were so sweet, and the ending was so good. Like she has her Cinderella moment and I'm not over it. And then the second book that I wanted to mention was the first Twilight book that I have right here. I read this at the beginning of the year, and this is definitely my favorite book out of the entire Twilight series. I have been a Twilight stan since high school. Absolutely love the movies, but I never read the books, and I finally decided to go ahead and do that this year. And this book was everything that I hoped it would be, and I rated this one 5 stars. What is your favorite book to movie adaptation that you've seen so far this year? And I am going to cheat a little bit on this question because I haven't read any books so far this year that have been turned into movies, but I will say this is an obvious one I want to mention. The Summer I Turned Pretty. I think the second season comes out like so soon, and the trailer looked phenomenal. Like I am so incredibly excited to sob. And the fact that like Taylor Swift lets them use her music, it just like makes it so good. This is a perfect summer read. It's a young adult book, very clean. There's a love triangle in here between Belly and the 2 brothers. It takes place on the beach. Like it's such a cute summer read, so I would definitely recommend checking this out if you guys haven't seen it. But the show is just so well done. And then another one I wanted to mention was Daisy Jones and the Six. I absolutely love that show. It's on Amazon Prime. I have not read the book though, so I feel like that's why I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I have heard that the book is phenomenal, but the music in the show is so good. I have a couple of the songs on my Spotify playlist that I listen to quite regularly, but me and my mom like binged the entire thing. It was so well done. And then another one that I am really excited about, I think this comes out in the fall. They made a Lessons in Chemistry show, and I read that book last year. I rated it 4.5 stars, I think. I was surprised by how much I love that book because it's just, the plot is so unique. It takes place in the 1960s. It follows this woman. She is a chemist, and she is just like going through that era era where just like women are not respected in the business world, and you get to see her like deal with all of these men. It's so infuriating. She basically like ends up on this cooking show, and she ends up like incorporating so much science into like teaching women how to cook. I think it's coming out on Apple TV. I know from my book club, I think we're gonna do like a little watch night thing for it. I'm so excited. Second to last question, what is the most beautiful book that you've bought this year? Hands down, it's gotta be 1,000 Heartbeats by Kardas. I am just obsessed with all of her book covers. Like the dresses that these women wear, I'm like, can I just be in my princess era, please? They're absolutely stunning. This is also the hard back version of the book, and you get to see Lennox, the main guy, on the back of it as well. But this story was so cute. I rated it 3.5 stars. If you guys love reading sweet princess romances, like Kardas is the author for you. I've read every single one of her books except for the second book in the Betrothed series, and just all of the covers in all of her books are gorgeous. I also, now that I'm like staring at all my books, have to mention Say You Swear Again. Like, look at this. The quality of this book is so good too. She's got the water on the title page, and then every chapter, like I showed you guys before, has like this little picture in it, and I just think the text is so good. It kind of reminds me of Magnolia Parks from the pictures that I've seen of it. I love it so much. Last question, what books do you want to read by the end of this year? I have a couple on here. Like I said, I definitely want to continue reading the Indigo Ridge series. Definitely want to get to Juniper Hill. That's the second book in the series. Also, I read the, what is it called? I always forget because the title is so long. The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. I read that fantasy book not too long ago, and I started reading the second one, which is called The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. But I DNF'd it at like 40%. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, I don't know. I'm not in my fantasy era right now, and I just like don't want to read fantasy books right now. So I would love to finish that hopefully in the fall, maybe when I'm in more of like a moody fantasy mood. And then another one I really want to get to is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I think we're gonna read this for my book club because the movie comes out in December. I have read all of the Hunger Games books, but it's been so long since I read all of them. And then I also want to read Crooked Kingdom, and I didn't take that one out. Hold on. Like I said, I haven't really been in my fantasy era, but I did read Six of Crows this year because I was obsessed with Shadow and Bone when the new season came out. So I read that one, but I have yet to read Crooked Kingdom, which is the second book in the duology. Hopefully maybe in the fall I can like finally finish this. And then the last book that I really want to finish, I talked about in my reading for 24 hours video. This is my anxiety book, The Anxious Truth. I still have like half of it left. I literally have not picked it up since I filmed that video. Oh my gosh, that took so long to film, so I really hope it wasn't too long for you guys, but this was so fun. I'm so happy that I filmed this. I think it's going to be really fun to look back on at the end of the year. Definitely let me know if you guys have read any of the books I mentioned in this video, or if you have any book recommendations for me, feel free to comment them down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you are having a great day wherever you are, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys!